Marcus Chen stood in the corner of the gymnasium, paper cup of weak coffee in hand, watching his daughter Emma bounce between craft tables covered in glitter and construction paper. The spring festival at New Meridian Elementary was the kind of mandatory parent event he'd learned to tolerate in the 3 years since Sarah's death. Show up, smile, take photos, leave. Simple formula. Keep moving forward. The colony's gymnasium doubled as a community center, its high ceilings decorated with children's artwork depicting life on Kepler Form 42b. Crayon drawings of the purple-tinted sky, the copper-red soil, the biodomes that kept humanity alive on this frontier world. 1,500 souls living under pressurized domes, pretending this was home, pretending the 3-year journey from Earth hadn't left them all a little broken. Emma waved from across the room, her gap-toothed smile identical to Sarah's. Marcus waved back, his chest doing that familiar tight thing it did whenever he saw his wife's features reflected in their daughter's face. 7 years old now. She barely remembered Earth. This alien world was her normal. The other parents clustered in their usual groups. The administrators and their families near the refreshment table already networking, the agricultural specialists swapping complaints about crop yields, the security personnel maintaining their characteristic vigilance even here, eyes always scanning. And then there was Marcus, senior maintenance engineer, belonging nowhere in particular. That's when he noticed her. The Zentari mother stood alone near the emergency exit, her 4-year-old daughter clinging to her chitinous leg. Even among the handful of alien residents allowed in the colony, the Zentari attracted stares. Vara Seth, he'd seen her name on school forms when he'd volunteered for the parent council. Her kind looked like Earth's praying mantises had been scaled up and given a humanoid frame. Tall, easily 6.5 feet, with an elongated triangular head, multifaceted emerald eyes, and 4 arms that folded with unsettling precision. Her exoskeleton gleamed a deep jade green under the fluorescent lights, segmented plates flowing like organic armor. She wore human clothes, a simple grey dress that accommodated her extra limbs, but it only emphasized how alien she was, how other. Her daughter, Kessa, was in Emma's class, a quiet child who Marcus had seen playing alone during pickup times, creating elaborate structures with building blocks while other children gave her space. Not cruel space, just space. The gap that fear and uncertainty create. Marcus watched as Varaseth's compound eyes tracked her daughter with an intensity he recognized. The hypervigilance of a parent who knows the world isn't safe for their child, who knows they're all their kid has. Principal Hartwell took the small stage at the far end of the gym, tapping the microphone. Attention families, thank you all for coming to our spring festival. Before we begin the presentations, I want to remind everyone about next month's parent-teacher conferences. The principal droned on. Marcus's attention drifted back to Varaseth. One of her smaller secondary arms was stroking her daughter's head in a gesture so tenderly maternal it transcended species. Kessa looked up at her mother, mandibles clicking softly, the Zentari equivalent of a child's babbling. And remember, we're one community here at New Meridian Elementary, building a future for all our children together. The words rang hollow. Marcus had seen the petition circulating last month to limit non-human enrollment, had heard the arguments at colony council meetings about preserving human culture and appropriate integration timelines. Bureaucratic language for keeping the aliens at arm's length. The presentations began. First grade went first, 20 children shuffling onto stage to sing a song about the water cycle. Emma stood in the front row, belting out lyrics with unself-conscious enthusiasm. Marcus raised his camera, capturing the moment, trying to feel the joy this should bring instead of the overwhelming loneliness that colored everything now. When Emma's class finished and bounded off stage, she ran straight to him. "Did you see me, Daddy? Did you see? You were amazing, sweetheart." Absolutely amazing. He caught her in a hug, this small, warm creature who kept him tethered to life. "Can I go show Kessa my drawing?" "Please." Marcus glanced over. Kessa remained pressed against her mother, her small mandibles tight, the Zentari child equivalent of a worried frown. "Sure, honey. Go ahead." Emma skipped over with the fearlessness of children who haven't learned prejudice yet. "Hi, Kessa. Want to see what I made?" Kessa's antennae perked up slightly. She looked to her mother, who gestured gentle permission with one delicate claw hand. The two girls moved to a nearby table, Emma chattering away while Kessa listened with focused attention. Varaseth watched them with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read on her alien features, but he understood the body language, the slight slump of her shoulders, the way her hands folded and unfolded, the isolation radiating from her like cold. The presentations continued. 3rd grade, 4th grade. The gymnasium grew warmer with body heat, and the inadequate ventilation system Marcus kept meaning to upgrade. He found himself watching Varaseth more than the stage, watching how she stood perfectly still while other parents mingled and chatted, how no one approached her, how she seemed to be trying to take up as little space as possible despite her height. Finally, it was time for the refreshment social. Parents and children crowded around tables laden with cookies and punch. Marcus got Emma settled with her friends before they scattered to play, then found himself near the wall, observing again. That's when Sharon Westbrook materialized beside Varaseth. Sharon, the colony's self-appointed guardian of propriety, with her perfect blonde hair and her smile that never reached her eyes. Marcus saw it happening from across the room and started moving, some instinct warning him. "Varaseth, isn't it?" Sharon's voice carried, pitched to sound friendly but loud enough to attract attention. Several parents turned to watch. The Zentari mother nodded, her mandibles tight. "Yes, it is good to see you, Mrs. Westbrook. I wanted to talk to you about the classroom pet situation. Some of the parents are concerned." "Concerned?" Varaseth's head tilted, compound eyes refracting light in rainbow patterns. "I do not understand." "Well, Mrs. Patterson wants to get a rabbit for the classroom. But given that your people are, well, carnivorous, and some of the children have mentioned that Kessa has talked about hunting." Sharon trailed off meaningfully. Marcus was close enough now to see Varaseth stiffen, her exoskeleton plates shifting subtly. "Kessa is 4 years old. She has never hunted. We eat synthesized protein, the same as everyone in the colony." Of course. But you understand how it looks. We just want to make sure all the children feel safe." "Safe?" Something cracked in Varaseth's voice. "You wish to make them safe from a 4-year-old child who has done nothing but try to belong." Sharon's smile thinned. "There's no need to get emotional. We're all just trying to do what's best for the community." "The community?" Varaseth's voice dropped to barely a whisper, but it carried a weight that made several people nearby shift uncomfortably. "I have lived in this community for 5 years. 5 years since my mate died in the construction accident during dome expansion. 5 years of trying to belong, trying to give my daughter a life." Marcus stopped moving, frozen by the rawness in her voice. 5 years of watching humans step away when we approach. 5 years of committee meetings that decide if my child deserves the same education as yours. 5 years of feeling like a contaminant you all tolerate because the integration treaties require it. Her voice broke. 5 years since anyone has touched me without fear, since anyone has looked at me and seen a person instead of a thing. The gymnasium had gone quiet. Even the children sensed something was wrong, their playing subdued. "I am so tired," Varaseth continued, her forearms wrapping around herself in a gesture of profound despair. "So tired of being strong alone, of holding my daughter while she cries because she has no friends, of pretending this isolation doesn't hurt, of acting like I don't need what everyone needs, to be seen, to be valued, to be held." A tear rolled down her chitinous cheek. Marcus didn't know Zentari could cry. "I haven't been held in 5 years," she whispered. "No comfort, no touch, no moment of weakness allowed because I must be perfect to justify my existence here. And now you want to tell my daughter she cannot even have a classroom pet because of what she is?" Sharon stepped back, her face flushed. I was just expressing concerns." "Get away from me," Varaseth said, her voice hollow. "Please, just leave us alone." She turned toward the exit, reaching for Kessa. Her daughter looked up at her with worried, chittering sounds. Marcus's body moved before his mind caught up. He'd spent 3 years locked in his own grief, going through motions, keeping his head down. 3 years of watching injustice because it wasn't his problem, wasn't his fight. 3 years of being too broken to care about anything beyond getting Emma through each day. But standing there, watching this mother, This person, shatter under the weight of prolonged isolation and casual cruelty. Something in him snapped back to life. Maybe it was seeing his own pain reflected in another being. Maybe it was the fundamental wrongness of it all. Maybe it was just that he was tired of being numb. Wait, his voice cut through the awkward silence. Every head turned toward him. Marcus walked across the gymnasium floor, his footsteps echoing. He stopped directly in front of Varaseth, looking up at her towering frame. "You're right," he said clearly. "Everything you said is right. This community has failed you. We've treated you like a problem to be managed instead of a person to be welcomed, and that ends now." Varaseth stared at him, her compound eyes reflecting a dozen tiny images of his face. "What?" Marcus turned to address the room. His heart hammered, but his voice stayed steady. "My name is Marcus Chen. Most of you know me as the guy who fixes your heating systems and keeps the water recycling running. Some of you know I lost my wife 3 years ago. What you don't know is that I've spent those 3 years watching this colony become something I'm ashamed of." Sharon found her voice. "Marcus, this isn't the time or place." "This is exactly the time and place," he cut her off. "We're at a school event celebrating community, except we've built a community that excludes people based on what they look like instead of who they are." He gestured to Varaseth without taking his eyes off the crowd. "This woman has lived here for 5 years. She and her daughter are colony residents with full legal status. Her mate died building the infrastructure we all depend on, and we've repaid that sacrifice by treating them like threats." Principal Hartwell stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, I understand you're trying to help, but—" "I'm making an announcement," Marcus said firmly. "As of right now, Varaseth and Kessa are under my family's protection. They are not alone anymore. Anyone who has a problem with them will answer to me. Anyone who wants to exclude them, discriminate against them, or make them feel unwelcome will deal with the consequences." The gymnasium erupted in murmurs. Marcus heard the word crazy more than once. He ignored it all, turning back to Varaseth. Her eyes were wide, her mandibles slightly parted in shock. "Why would you do this? You don't know me. You will make yourself a target." "Because it's right," Marcus said simply. "Because I know what it's like to be alone in a crowd. Because my daughter plays with yours and doesn't see an alien. She sees a friend. Because I'm tired of being afraid." He paused. "And because you're right. You shouldn't have to be perfect to justify your existence. None of us should." "Marcus," Sharon's voice had taken on a warning tone, "you're making a mistake. The colony has protocols for integration. You can't just what? Offer friendship? Show basic human decency?" He laughed, a sharp sound. "Watch me." He held out his hand to Varaseth. "You said you haven't been held in 5 years. I can't fix that right now, but I can offer this. A handshake. One person to another. An alliance, if you'll accept it." Varaseth stared at his outstretched hand. The entire gymnasium watched. Marcus felt the weight of what he was doing, the social capital he was burning, the bridges he was likely destroying. He didn't care. For the first time in 3 years, he felt awake. Slowly, Varaseth extended one of her primary hands. Her fingers, 3 long digits with delicate chitinous plating, grasped his hand. Her grip was warm, surprisingly warm, and gentle, despite the strength he could feel in those alien fingers. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You cannot know what this means." "We'll figure it out together," Marcus said. "You, me, and our kids. No one should have to carry everything alone." Emma appeared at his side, having pushed through the crowd with Kessa in tow. "Daddy, can Kessa come over for a playdate, please?" The simple, innocent question from his daughter shattered the remaining tension. Marcus looked down at Emma's hopeful face, then at Kessa, whose antennae were perked forward with cautious excitement. "Yes," he said firmly. "Yes, she can. This weekend. Both of them." He looked at Varaseth. "If that's okay with you." Varaseth nodded, unable to speak. Her free hand pressed to her chest in what might have been her species' gesture of gratitude. The crowd was already fragmenting, some people leaving early, others clustering in urgent conversations. Marcus knew what would come next. The gossip, the social consequences. The colony council would probably have something to say. He'd made himself a pariah alongside Varaseth. Somehow standing there holding the hand of an alien widow, while their daughters made plans to build blanket forts. It felt like the first right thing he'd done in years. Principal Hartwell approached, his expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Chen, Mrs. Varaseth, perhaps we should discuss this in my office." "There's nothing to discuss," Marcus said evenly, "but if you want to talk about implementing actual inclusive policies at this school, I'm available Monday morning." The principal blinked, then nodded slowly. "I'll have my secretary set up a meeting." As the gymnasium cleared, Marcus released Varaseth's hand. She was still crying, silent tears tracking down her chitinous cheeks. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, now that fewer people were watching. "I didn't mean to put you on the spot. If I overstepped—" "No." Her voice was fierce despite its softness. "No, you gave me something I thought I had lost. Hope. The possibility of not being alone." She looked at him with those rainbow-fractured eyes. "But you have made a powerful enemy. Sharon Westbrook has influence. Others will follow her lead." Marcus shrugged. "Let them. I've been sleepwalking through life for 3 years. At least now I'm fighting for something that matters." Emma and Kessa had moved to a corner, already deep in imaginative play. Marcus watched them, then glanced at Varaseth. "I meant what I said. This isn't just for show. If you need anything, repairs to your hab unit, help navigating colony bureaucracy, someone to watch Kessa, whatever, you call me." "Why?" The question was plaintive. "You risk so much." "Because my wife would have done it without hesitation," Marcus said, the words surprising him with their truth. "Sarah was always the brave one, always stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. I've been trying to honor her memory by just surviving, but that's not enough. She would have been ashamed of what this colony has become. I'm ashamed of what I've let myself become." He met Varaseth's eyes. "You deserved better than what you got today. You deserve better than what you've gotten for 5 years. I can't fix the colony's prejudice overnight, but I can make sure you're not alone in fighting it." Varaseth's mandibles trembled. "In my culture, when someone offers protection to another's family, it creates a bond called Kelvara. It means shield sibling. That is not given lightly, because it means your honor and theirs are joined." "Then consider us shield siblings," Marcus said. "We'll face whatever comes together." Over the following days, Marcus learned exactly what "whatever comes" meant. Monday morning brought a message from his supervisor requesting a meeting to discuss professional conduct expectations. Marcus showed up to find not just his boss, but 2 colony council representatives. "Mr. Chen," Councillor Rodriguez began, her tone sympathetic but firm, "we understand you've been under stress. Losing your wife was traumatic, and we've made allowances." "This has nothing to do with Sarah," Marcus interrupted. "This is about basic fairness." Councillor Thompson, a heavy-set man with perpetual frown lines, leaned forward. "Your outburst at the school event has caused significant disruption. Several families have filed complaints." "Complaints about what?" "Me offering friendship to a colony resident." "Complaints about your aggressive confrontation," Thompson corrected, "about making other parents feel attacked for legitimate concerns." "Legitimate concerns?" Marcus kept his voice level through sheer force of will. "You mean racism dressed up in polite language?" Rodriguez winced. "Marcus, please. The integration protocols exist for good reason. Cultural differences need to be navigated carefully." "It's been 5 years," Marcus said flatly. "How much more carefully do we need to navigate basic human decency?" His supervisor, Tom Brennan, finally spoke. "Look, Marcus, nobody's saying you can't be friends with whoever you want, but the public nature of your declaration has put the colony in an awkward position. We have trade negotiations with other human settlements. We have Earth to answer to about how we're managing first contact species integration. You've made waves." "Good," Marcus said. Maybe some waves were needed. The meeting ended with a formal written warning in his file. Marcus signed it and left. By Tuesday, 3 families had withdrawn from activities Emma was enrolled in. The soccer team coordinator sent a regretful message explaining that several parents had threatened to pull their children if Emma remained on the roster. Marcus sat at his kitchen table that evening, staring at the messages on his tablet, feeling the familiar weight of grief and anger mixing with something new, a fierce protectiveness that extended beyond just his daughter now. Emma appeared in her pajamas, ready for bed. "Daddy? Am I in trouble?" His heart cracked. No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. You did nothing wrong. Then why can't I play soccer anymore? Marcus pulled her into his lap, breathing in the clean scent of her shampoo. Some people are making bad choices because they're afraid. But that's not your fault, and it's not Kessa's fault. It's on them. I don't understand why they're afraid of Kessa. She's nice. I know, baby. Sometimes fear doesn't make sense. He kissed the top of her head. But we're going to keep being kind and standing up for our friends, okay? Even when it's hard. Okay, Daddy. She hugged him tight. I'm glad Kessa and her mom aren't alone anymore. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Wednesday brought the promised playdate. Varaseth arrived at Marcus's hab unit precisely on time, Kessa clutching her hand nervously. The Zentari mother had to duck to enter through the standard doorway, her height making Marcus's modest living space seem even smaller. Thank you for having us, she said formally. Her secondary hands held a covered dish. I brought food. I researched human cuisine. I hope it is acceptable. Emma grabbed Kessa's hand, already pulling her toward the play area. Come on, I want to show you my blocks. The two girls disappeared, leaving Marcus and Varaseth in awkward proximity in the narrow kitchen area. You didn't have to bring anything, Marcus said, taking the dish. He uncovered it to find something that looked like a casserole, the scent spicy and appealing. I wanted to contribute. In my culture, accepting protection without reciprocation creates imbalance. She paused. I am not accustomed to depending on others. Yeah, I get that. Marcus pulled out plates, moving through the automatic motions of hospitality. I've been the same way since Sarah died. Everyone wants to help at first, but eventually they stop asking. You get used to handling everything alone. Yes, Varaseth said quietly. Exactly that. They prepared dinner together in companionable silence, the domestic normalcy of it, both strange and comforting. Marcus found himself hyper-aware of her presence, not in a fearful way, but in the heightened consciousness of another person sharing his space after so long alone. I received a message today, Varaseth said as they set the table. The Colony Housing Authority wants to inspect my unit. They say there have been concerns about whether the environmental controls are properly maintained. Marcus frowned. That's standard bureaucratic harassment. They're looking for violations to use against you, he considered. I could come to an unofficial inspection first. Make sure everything's up to code. I know those systems inside and out. You have already risked so much. Varaseth. He waited until she looked at him. Shield siblings, remember? Let me help. Her mandibles softened. A gesture he was learning indicated gratitude or warmth. Then I accept. Thank you. Dinner was chaotic in the way only small children can create. Emma and Kessa built elaborate structures with blocks between bites, narrating complex stories involving space pirates and rescue missions. Varaseth's food turned out to be delicious, the spices unfamiliar but complementary. This is really good, Marcus said genuinely. What is it? A traditional Zentari dish modified for human digestion. It is called karvesh. It means comfort food in your language. We make it for times of gathering and celebration. Are you celebrating something? Varaseth looked at him, her expression impossible to fully read, but her posture relaxed in a way he hadn't seen before. Perhaps I am celebrating not being alone. Something warm settled in Marcus's chest. Yeah, I think maybe I am too. After dinner, Emma begged for a movie. Marcus set up the projection screen while Varaseth helped clean up, her forearms making quick work of dishes. They settled on the couch, Marcus on one end, Varaseth carefully positioning herself on the other so her height wouldn't block Emma's view, and the two girls piled on cushions on the floor. The movie was an animated classic from Earth, something about talking fish. Marcus had seen it dozens of times, could recite the dialogue in his sleep, but watching it with company, hearing Varaseth's quiet laughter at the jokes, seeing Kessa's antennae wiggle with delight at the colorful scenes, it transformed the familiar into something new. Halfway through, Emma climbed up onto the couch between them, drowsy and content. Kessa followed, settling against her mother's side. Varaseth's secondary arm instinctively curled around her daughter, protective and tender. Thank you, Varaseth said softly, her eyes still on the screen. This is the first time in 5 years I have felt normal, like we are just a family visiting friends. You are, Marcus said. That's exactly what this is. When the movie ended, both girls were asleep. Emma sprawled across Marcus's lap, and Kessa curled against Varaseth's side. They looked at each other over the children's peaceful forms. "I should go," Varaseth whispered. "But I do not wish to wake her." "Stay a while longer," Marcus suggested. "Let them sleep a bit." So they sat in the dimmed lights, two parents watching their daughters sleep, the weight of the week settling on them. "I have been thinking," Varaseth said eventually, "about what you risked at the school, about what you continue to risk. I need you to understand something." "What's that?" "In my culture, we do not form bonds lightly. When my mate died, I thought I would never connect with anyone again. Zentari typically bond once, permanently. The idea of opening myself to another, to anyone, felt like betrayal." She paused. "But this week you have given me something I cannot repay. Hope, companionship, the possibility that my daughter might have a real life here." "You don't have to repay anything. Please let me finish." Her voice was gentle but firm. "What I need you to understand is that I am aware of the cost you are paying. I see how the other humans look at you now. I know about the professional warning, about Emma being excluded from activities. You are suffering consequences for standing with us." "I know what I signed up for," Marcus said. "Do you?" Varaseth's compound eyes caught the dim light, fragmenting it into rainbows. "Because the consequences will grow worse. Sharon Westbrook is on the Colony Council. She is organizing a petition to limit human-alien social integration. She is using us, using you as her rallying point." Marcus felt a flash of anger. "Let her try. The integration treaties are binding. Legal rights and social acceptance are different things. You know this." Varaseth's voice carried a weight of experience. "I have watched for 5 years as they use bureaucracy and social pressure to make our lives difficult while staying within legal boundaries. They will do the same to you now. So what are you saying? That I should back off? Leave you alone to protect myself?" "No." The word was fierce. "I am saying I need you to know what you are fighting for, to be certain, because once we continue down this path, there may be no easy return." Marcus looked down at Emma, her face peaceful in sleep. He thought about Sarah, about what she would have done, about what kind of man he wanted to be, what kind of example he wanted to set for his daughter. "I'm certain," he said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Varaseth reached across the couch, careful not to disturb the sleeping children. Her hand found his, warm and solid. They sat like that in the darkness, two broken people beginning to believe they might heal together. The week that followed proved Varaseth's warnings prescient. The petition Sharon Westbrook circulated gained signatures rapidly. Marcus found himself excluded from social situations he'd barely participated in before, but now noticed the absence of. His work assignments shifted to less desirable tasks: night shifts, maintenance in the agricultural domes where the humidity was oppressive and the smell of fertilizer overwhelming. Emma came home crying twice, reporting that former friends had said their parents didn't want them playing with her anymore. Each tear she shed felt like a knife in Marcus's chest, but when he asked if she regretted defending Kessa, she shook her head fiercely. "Kessa's my best friend now," Emma declared. "I don't want friends who are mean." 7 years old and already braver than most adults, Marcus didn't know whether to be proud or heartbroken. Friday evening, Marcus went to inspect Varaseth's HAB unit as promised. She lived in one of the smaller units on the colony's edge, the kind allocated to single-parent households. The space was immaculately maintained, decorated with what looked like Zentari artwork, intricate crystalline structures that refracted light into complex patterns. "Your home is beautiful," Marcus said, meaning it. "Thank you, the crystals are from my homeworld. One of the few things I could bring on the journey." Varaseth gestured to the environmental controls. "I believe the housing authority will focus on the climate settings. They have questioned before whether Zentari temperature preferences violate energy conservation regulations." Marcus examined the systems, running diagnostics on his handheld scanner. Everything was not just functional but optimized. "This is actually more efficient than standard settings. You've modified the heat exchange protocol. I was an environmental engineer on my world. Before," she trailed off, "before we came here seeking a better life. You never told me what brought you to the colony." Varaseth settled onto a cushion designed for her different physiology. "My mate, Tarkchen, was part of the first Zentari delegation to make contact with your colony. He believed in the possibility of cooperation between our species. When the colony offered positions for skilled workers during the expansion, he convinced me to come. And then he died in the construction accident. Yes, a structural failure in Dome 3. He was helping secure the support beams when the collapse happened. Her voice was steady but hollow with old pain. 5 humans also died. I remember thinking, surely this shared tragedy would create bonds. We mourned together, initially, but then the memorial came. The 5 humans received full colony honors. Their names were added to the monument in the central plaza. Tarkchen received a brief mention in the incident report. She looked at Marcus. That was when I understood. We were not truly part of the community, we were guests, tolerated but not belonging. Marcus felt a surge of anger on her behalf. That's wrong. He deserved the same recognition. I tried to advocate for it, but I was a grieving widow, and my grief made the humans uncomfortable. Too emotional, too alien. She gestured with her secondary hands in what might have been a shrug. I learned to keep my pain private, to make myself smaller, quieter, to pretend I did not need what I needed. And meanwhile you were raising Kessa alone. Yes, and she is everything to me. My reason to keep going. Varaseth's mandibles softened. But I worry I have not given her enough. She has no Zentari friends here, only 3 other Zentari families in the entire colony, none with children her age. She is growing up isolated from her culture, and also rejected by yours. Marcus finished his inspection, marking everything as compliant. She has Emma now. I know it's not the same as having friends from her own culture, but Emma loves her. Genuinely. I know. And it means more than you realize. Varaseth stood, moving to a storage unit. I want to show you something. She pulled out a small box, opened it carefully. Inside was what looked like a piece of jewelry, a braided cord with crystalline beads. This is a Kelvara bond marker. In my culture, when 2 families become shield siblings, they exchange these. Each crystal represents a promise. Protection, support, honesty, loyalty. She held it out. I made this for you, if you still want to continue this alliance. Marcus took the cord carefully. The crystals caught the light, each one a different color. It's beautiful, but I don't have anything to give you in return. The bond itself is the exchange, but if you want to honor my culture, you would wear it. Marcus tied the cord around his wrist. It settled against his skin, warm and solid. I'm honored. Varaseth's mandibles trembled slightly. No, I am the one who is honored. You have given me back my hope. They stood in her living space, the moment heavy with unspoken things. Marcus was aware of how close they were, how much his life had changed in just a week, how this alien woman had somehow become central to his thoughts. Varaseth, he began, not sure what he wanted to say. She tilted her head. Yes, I just want you to know, and whatever happens with the petition, with the colony council, with any of it, I'm not going anywhere. This isn't temporary. I meant what I said about being shield siblings. I know, she said softly. I believe you. That is what frightens me. Frightens you? Because I am beginning to hope for more than just survival. Beginning to imagine that perhaps my life could be more than just enduring. Her compound eyes met his, and hope is dangerous when it can be taken away. Marcus understood that fear intimately. Every time he'd started to feel anything resembling happiness since Sarah's death, guilt had crushed it. But standing here looking at Varaseth's carefully guarded hopefulness, he realized something. Maybe hope is dangerous, he said, but maybe living without it is worse. Before Varaseth could respond, Marcus's comm unit chirped. He checked it, his stomach sinking at the message. Emergency Colony Council session called for tomorrow night, he read aloud. Topic: Review of Integration Protocols and Community Standards. He looked up. This is about us. Varaseth's posture shifted, her plates seeming to lock into a defensive configuration. It begins then. We knew it was coming. Marcus forwarded the message to his tablet. Do we attend, or let them talk about us behind closed doors? We attend, Varaseth said firmly. If they are going to judge us, they will do so to our faces. Marcus nodded, feeling that familiar awakening he'd experienced at the school, the sense of purpose he'd been missing. Together, then. Together. The colony council chamber was packed. Marcus had never seen this level of attendance, not even during the water rationing debates last year. Every seat was filled, people standing along the walls. The air was thick with tension, and the inadequate ventilation Marcus kept requesting budget to upgrade. He and Varaseth entered together, the crowd parting like they carried a contagious disease. Marcus felt eyes tracking them as they took seats near the front. Varaseth had to fold her frame carefully to fit in the human-sized chair, her discomfort obvious. Emma was with Tom Brennan's wife, one of the few people who'd remained friendly. Kessa was with one of the Zentari families. Marcus had met them briefly, quiet people even more isolated than Varaseth had been. The council sat at a raised table. Councillor Rodriguez, Councillor Thompson, and 3 others Marcus knew by sight, but not well. Sharon Westbrook sat in the front row of the audience section, her expression serene and confident. Rodriguez called the meeting to order. Thank you all for attending. We're here tonight to discuss concerns raised by multiple community members regarding integration protocols and recent incidents affecting community harmony. Recent incidents, Marcus muttered. That's one way to put it, Rodriguez continued. We've received a petition signed by 67 colony residents requesting a formal review of our policies regarding human and non-human social integration, specifically concerning school programs and community events. 67 signatures. Out of 1,500 people, that didn't seem like much, but in a colony this size, it was significant. Sharon Westbrook stood. May I address the council? The floor is yours, Mrs. Westbrook. Sharon turned to address both the council and the crowd, a practiced speaker. Thank you. I want to be clear that this petition is not about prejudice. We value our treaty obligations and respect all residents of this colony, regardless of species. Marcus snorted softly. Varaseth's secondary hand touched his arm gently, a gesture of restraint. However, Sharon continued, we must also consider the well-being of our children and the preservation of human culture. We came to Kepler 442b to build a new home for humanity. That doesn't mean we should abandon our identity or force our children into situations that may be uncomfortable or confusing. Uncomfortable or confusing, like having friends, Marcus said, loud enough to carry. Rodriguez shot him a warning look. Mr. Chen, you'll have an opportunity to speak. Sharon smiled thinly. Mr. Chen's outburst proves my point. There's an aggressive pushback against any attempt at reasonable discussion. We're simply asking for age-appropriate integration, perhaps separate social events for younger children, allowing them to interact with their own species until they're old enough to understand and process differences. Murmurs of agreement from some audience members. Marcus felt his pulse rising. Another parent stood, a man Marcus recognized from school pickup. My daughter came home asking why Kessa has 4 arms. She wanted to know if she could grow more arms too. That kind of confusion isn't healthy for a 6-year-old. So the solution is segregation, a voice from the back. Marcus turned to see Principal Hartwell standing. I believe that's what we're actually discussing here. Segregation of children based on species. It's not segregation, Sharon said smoothly. It's age-appropriate development. And frankly, the aggressive behavior displayed by Mr. Chen at the school event demonstrates the kind of extremism that comes from forced integration. Marcus stood before he could stop himself. Aggressive behavior? I offered friendship. I stood up against cruelty. If that's extreme, then yes, I'm guilty. Rodriguez held up a hand. Mr. Chen, please wait your turn. When is my turn? Marcus demanded. Because it seems like this whole meeting is designed to put an official stamp on prejudice while pretending it's about protecting children. Thompson leaned forward. Mr. Chen, you're out of order. No, this colony is out of order. Marcus gestured to Varaseth. This woman has lived here for 5 years. Her mate died building the infrastructure we all depend on. She pays her colony fees, follows all regulations, and tries to give her daughter a normal life. And you want to reward that by banning her child from birthday parties. Nobody said anything about banning, Sharon began. That's exactly what you're saying, Marcus shot back. Separate social events means Kessa gets excluded while our kids have parties she can't attend. How is that anything but cruelty? Varaseth stood beside him, her full height impressive in the low-ceilinged room. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but carried perfectly. "May I say something?" Rodriguez nodded, looking uncomfortable. "Of course. I have listened tonight to people discussing whether my daughter deserves the same childhood as your children, whether her presence is harmful, whether her existence is something your children need protection from." Varaseth's mandibles were tight. "I want you all to understand something. Kessa is 4 years old. She loves building blocks and singing songs. She tries so hard to make friends. She cries when she comes home alone again. After watching other children play together, the room had gone silent. She asks me why she is different, why the other children's parents say they cannot play with her. And I tell her that she is special, that she is loved, that someday people will see how wonderful she is." Varaseth's voice broke. "But how long can I tell her these lies? How long before she understands that no matter how good she is, no matter how hard she tries, some people will never see past her face?" "Mrs. Varaseth," Rodriguez said gently, "nobody wants your daughter to suffer." The heavy silence that followed Varaseth's words pressed down on every soul in the colony council chamber. It was a silence of uncomfortable truth, laid bare by a mother's raw pain fighting for her child's dignity. No one spoke. No one stirred. Even Sharon Westbrook, usually so poised, looked momentarily disarmed, her facade of legitimate concerns crumbling under the weight of an innocent child's sorrow. Councillor Rodriguez's gentle, almost helpless remark, "Nobody wants your daughter to suffer," hung in the air, exposed for its hollow inadequacy against the profound suffering just articulated. Marcus, standing beside Varaseth, felt a surge of fierce pride and renewed conviction. Her vulnerability was not weakness, it was a potent, unassailable strength. She had peeled back the layers of bureaucratic jargon and social niceties to reveal the naked heart of the issue, the systemic cruelty of exclusion, the profound wound of being deemed other. He reached out, his hand finding hers again, a silent promise of solidarity. He felt the familiar warmth of her chitinous skin, a tangible connection in a room filled with icy stares. Councillor Thompson cleared his throat, his face grim. "Mrs. Varaseth," he began, his voice surprisingly subdued, We hear you. This is clearly a deeply personal matter." "It is a deeply personal matter for every child who is made to feel less than," Varaseth replied, her voice still quiet, but imbued with a steel Marcus now recognized as inherent to her being. "It is personal for every parent who watches their child suffer simply for existing, and it should be a personal matter for every member of this colony who claims to uphold principles of justice and community." Principal Hartwell, still standing in the back, spoke up. "Councillors, with all due respect, Mrs. Varaseth has articulated a truth that our school, and indeed our colony, has actively chosen to ignore for far too long. We speak of integration, yet we practice segregation. We preach unity, yet we cultivate division. How can we as leaders stand by and allow such prejudice to fester, especially when it targets our most vulnerable, our children?" Sharon Westbrook finally regained her composure, her smile returning, though it seemed brittle now. "Principal Hartwell, I appreciate your passion, but we are discussing policy, not emotion. And with all due respect, Mr. Chen's dramatic gestures and Mrs. Varaseth's emotional appeal, while understandable, do not negate the legitimate concerns of many parents regarding cultural assimilation and resource allocation." "Resource allocation?" Marcus interjected, unable to hold back. "What resources are being allocated by telling a child she can't have friends? What cultural assimilation demands we strip someone of their dignity?" The room erupted into a fresh wave of murmurs, but this time there was a different undercurrent. Some voices expressed agreement with Marcus and Varaseth, others continued to side with Sharon. The division was palpable, the carefully maintained facade of colony unity now visibly fractured. Councillor Rodriguez slammed her gavel down. "Order! Order, please! This is not a shouting match. We are here to deliberate calmly and rationally." She looked from Marcus to Varaseth, then to Sharon. "It is clear that this issue has exposed deep fissures within our community. The petition highlights genuine fears and concerns, some valid, some perhaps less so. However, Mrs. Varaseth's testimony has also illuminated the profound human and indeed sentient cost of those fears. She paused, taking a deep breath. Therefore, the Council cannot, at this moment, simply dismiss Mrs. Westbrook's petition, nor can we ignore the compelling arguments for true inclusivity. We recognize the need for a more comprehensive approach. Effective immediately, the Council will form an ad hoc committee on interspecies integration and community harmony. This committee will be tasked with reviewing all existing integration protocols, proposing new guidelines for promoting genuine inclusivity in schools and community events, and developing strategies for addressing xenophobia and prejudice within the colony. Marcus felt a flicker of hope. A committee was bureaucracy, yes, but it was also a formal acknowledgement, a step forward. Furthermore, Rodriguez continued, her gaze settling on Marcus and Varaseth, given the immediate issues raised, particularly concerning school activities, I am issuing a temporary directive. Until the committee's findings are presented and new policies implemented, all colony children, regardless of species, are to be granted full and equal access to all school-sponsored and colony-sanctioned activities. Any exclusionary practices will be met with severe disciplinary action. This includes, Mrs. Westbrook, any attempts to organize separate social events that effectively ostracize any child. Sharon Westbrook's serene smile finally vanished, replaced by a tight-lipped frown. It was not a complete victory, but it was a significant reprieve, a direct rebuke to Sharon's immediate agenda. And finally, Rodriguez concluded, to ensure that all perspectives are represented, I am inviting Mr. Chen, Mrs. Varaseth, and Principal Hartwell to serve on this committee. Mrs. Westbrook, your involvement would also be valuable. Marcus looked at Varaseth. Her compound eyes reflected a complex mix of relief, weariness, and a dawning understanding of the long fight ahead. We accept, Marcus said, speaking for both of them. As the meeting adjourned and the chamber slowly emptied, Marcus and Varaseth remained for a moment, the weight of the day settling upon them. They had stirred the waters, disrupted the comfortable apathy, and ignited a fire that would not easily be extinguished. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, with resistance and setbacks, but they would not walk it alone. They knew the fight was far from over. Sharon Westbrook's type of prejudice, rooted in fear and ignorance, would not simply vanish with a council directive. It would morph, find new avenues, and whisper in corners. But tonight, for the first time in 5 years, Varaseth had stood tall, not just with quiet dignity, but with a fierce, unwavering voice. And Marcus had stood with her, not out of obligation, but out of a profound and growing conviction that this was the right thing to do, the only thing to do. This story, dear friends, is not just about a human father and an alien mother on a distant colony. It is a timeless narrative, echoing through the ages, reflecting the very core of our shared spiritual journey. It speaks to the profound truth that we are all, in essence, fellow travelers on this cosmic voyage, each bearing the divine spark of creation, each yearning for connection, for belonging, for love. Marcus Chen's journey from solitary grief to courageous compassion mirrors a spiritual awakening that can happen within each of us. For 3 years he had been sleepwalking through life, numb to the world, tethered only by his love for Emma. His pain had built walls, isolating him in a silent fortress of sorrow. Yet, in witnessing Varaseth's raw vulnerability, in hearing her quiet lament, I haven't been held in 5 years, something within him broke free. It was not merely an act of kindness, it was an act of profound spiritual empathy, a recognition of shared suffering that transcended species and circumstance. It was the moment he chose to step out of his own darkness and shine a light for another. This is the essence of what our faith calls us to be, beacons of hope in a world often shadowed by fear and prejudice. Just as Marcus reached out his hand, offering not just protection but companionship, we are called to extend grace, understanding, and unwavering support to those who are isolated, marginalized, or deemed other by society. The love Marcus showed was not a superficial emotion, it was an active, sacrificial commitment, a willingness to risk his own comfort, reputation, and security for the sake of another's dignity. It was a love that sought justice, that demanded recognition of inherent worth, that declared unequivocally, "You are not alone." Varaseth's plea, "I haven't been held in 5 years," resonates far beyond her chitinous form. How many among us in our silent struggles with loneliness and despair utter a similar cry? How many of our neighbors, colleagues, or even family members, though physically present, feel unheld, unseen, unheard for years on end? Our world, for all its advancements, can be a lonely place, a colony where fear of the unfamiliar often trumps the call to compassion. We build invisible walls of judgment, suspicion, and indifference, creating safe spaces for ourselves that inadvertently exclude and wound others. But our faith teaches us that every soul is precious, crafted with unique beauty and purpose by the divine hand. There are no others in the eyes of a loving Creator, only beloved children, each deserving of respect, empathy, and an equal place at the table of life. The story of Marcus and Varaseth reminds us that true community is not homogeneous. It is a tapestry woven from diverse threads, each bringing its own color, texture, and strength. To reject a thread is to weaken the entire fabric. To embrace it, to protect it, to celebrate its unique contribution, is to create something truly magnificent and resilient. So, how do we live this truth in our daily lives? How do we become shield siblings in our own communities? First, we begin with awareness. Just as Marcus had to stop sleepwalking through his grief, we must awaken to the subtle prejudices and exclusionary practices that may exist around us or even within us. It means listening with an open heart to stories of pain and isolation, even when they make us uncomfortable. It means actively seeking out those who stand alone, those who are overlooked, those whose voices are silenced by the noise of the majority. Second, we cultivate empathy. Empathy is not just feeling for someone. It is trying to understand their experience, to walk in their shoes, to see the world through their eyes, even if those eyes are multifaceted and alien. It means recognizing the shared humanity, or shared sentience, beneath the surface of difference. It means acknowledging that everyone carries burdens, everyone has fears, and everyone, fundamentally, longs to be seen, valued, and held. Third, we practice courage. Marcus's act was profoundly courageous. He challenged the status quo, risked his social standing, and invited criticism, all for the sake of doing what was right. Courage, in our context, might not always involve public pronouncements in a gymnasium. It might be as simple as speaking up when a discriminatory joke is told, or extending an invitation to someone new, or defending a marginalized voice in a quiet conversation. It is choosing love over fear, conviction over convenience. It is remembering that silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Fourth, we build bridges, not walls. The Colony Council, under Sharon Westbrook's influence, was intent on building walls of segregation. Marcus and Varaseth, through their unlikely bond, began to build bridges of understanding and genuine connection. This means actively fostering inclusive spaces, ensuring that all feel welcome, valued, and safe. It means celebrating diversity, learning from different cultures, and challenging the narratives of fear that seek to divide us. It means teaching our children not to fear difference, but to embrace it as a source of richness and wonder, just as Emma saw only a friend in Kessa. Finally, we remember that we are never alone in this endeavor. Marcus and Varaseth found strength in their unexpected alliance. In our spiritual journey, we are strengthened by a divine presence that champions justice and love, and by a community of faith that is called to embody these very principles. When we act with compassion, when we stand for justice, when we extend our hand to the lonely, we are not just doing good, we are participating in something sacred.